Hello, America. Boy, you are in for a show today. I mean, sure, it's not going to be the State of the Union. That was last night. Wow, that was so good, wasn't it? And, you know, I worked up a simple little math equation that kind of sums it all up, I think. You might have read this before, but I think it's an original idea. 2 plus 2 equals 5, right? I mean, that's what I saw last night. I'm going to get into the first 15 minutes of the speech, which was all about Ukraine, later on in the program. But the other 3/4 was a complete and total fabrication. You want to talk about fake news? Oh, my gosh. Were they fact-checking him at all? It was everything we actually care about, wasn't it? Our kids, the economy, the border, law and order. Or not. Not any of that stuff. Just Joe Biden trying to convince us that the dumpster is not really on fire. Do they really think that we're this stupid? It's a trick question because the answer is, yeah, they do. They do. And at times, I'm starting to think we're this stupid. I want to play something to you from the Rhodes Scholar, Kamala Harris, our vice president, when she was asked what's going on with Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Careful, it's some pretty heady stuff. Listen.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically that's wrong.
Okay, but why, Professor, can I ask a question? What if the smaller country went in and invaded the bigger country? Would that still be wrong? They really think you're this stupid. So that's when they go on national television, tells you 2 plus 2 equals 5. You're like, yeah, that's what she said, and I was thinking that it was 5. Everything Biden pretended to be concerned about last night, complete and total distortion of reality. Here's the distortion. Biden said in his speech that our kids need to be back in school. That's right. We've been saying that too. If John McClane was listening in from, I don't know, from the tower where they were holding those people hostage, remember that? He'd be saying, welcome to the party, pal, because that's what everybody's been saying since, I don't know, April 2020. Now here's the reality. Teachers' unions have been controlling the Biden administration from the very beginning. Corrupt union elitists have been writing the science for the scientists, and Biden just does what they tell him to do. Okay, I got to go out. I'm sorry, wrong voice. Oil prices have just blown past $111 a barrel. And here's the good news. It's only going to get worse. Oh, don't you wish you were a Saudi prince right now? Here's last night's distortion. Biden said he was releasing more of our oil reserves to relieve prices. Wait, first of all, the oil reserves that we keep all that oil in for strategic reasons in case we go into some sort of a global war. We can have fuel for our ships and our airplanes. Yeah, global war. That's so ridiculous. Not even in the realm of possibility. Let's just empty out those tanks, shall we? Now, if you're listening to this, you might think, no, he really cares. No, he doesn't. Goldman Sachs even said that's not going to change not a penny at the gas pump. So here's the reality. In the middle of a war with one of the largest producers of oil in the world, Biden halted drilling contracts here in the United States. Yeah, he just did that the other day. He also killed the Keystone oil pipeline. Now, does that look like he really cares about high energy costs? No, the answer is clearly, nope. And people like you and me are going to suffer. The people down, I had a woman in my house last night, she said, Glenn, I'm the average person. And I'm like, no, you're one of the little people. Why are you talking to me? She said, people like me, we can't make it already. Yeah, I know. Last night, your ears weren't playing tricks on you. Biden actually addressed the border. What? I mean, he hasn't thought about the border since he crossed it with the troops during the 1846 Mexican-American War. He's talking about it again. But he cares. Yeah, that's a distortion. Here's the reality. Border crossings and arrests have soared to an all-time high during Biden's first year in office. Nearly 2 million arrests were made at the Mexican border. Well, that's great. Those are the ones they caught and reported. Biden is trying to hide all of this. Secret flights from the southern border to cities all over the country where these people can vote in a never mind. What did I just say? This has been reported for months. Last night, Joe Biden actually had the balls to not only talk about the border, but then, hey, my gosh, have you seen the murder rate? And the murder of 2 New York police officers. He actually had the stones to say, you know, and that's why we say no to defund the police. It's fund them. Oh my. Are you this stupid?
Wait, was it a big police officer that was killing a smaller police officer? Because I think that might be wrong.
Are you this stupid, America? All we've heard for 5 years is saying, we want to reimagine the police. I don't know, maybe a splash of color in some of their uniforms. I couldn't believe it when I heard it, but here's the reality of why Biden did what he did was even worse. I want you to show or see this article from NBC. How Democrats went from defund to refund the police. Oh my gosh. Here's a quote. As crime rises ahead of the midterms, black mayors of the nation's largest cities are leading the call to the crackdown on lawlessness. Oh my gosh, crime is spiraling out of control. What could have possibly caused that? And it's not the human suffering that changed the narrative. It's the midterms. If that's not grotesque. And that sums up about 75% of last night's speech. Democrats wrecking the country now have a polling problem. So they're like, yeah, that's on fire. Look over there. Look what those guys are doing. And they expect you to believe that 2 + 2 = 5. That's it. Here's another reality. Less than 40% of the country approve of Joe Biden's presidency. I know, 37% is what doesn't approve. And I looked up the independents, it's even lower, it's 35. I know, shocking that it's all that high, right? The biggest thing people are concerned with is the economy. But don't worry, Joe Biden's on the job. He addressed the economy by saying that he was going to, quote, build a better America. Yeah, and the acronym is BABA. Oh, thank you, Joe. I don't know if Kamala or Joe wrote that part, but Biden went on to talk about massive spending programs, including free college, free pre-K, infrastructure, if I hear that word one more time. But of course, it won't cost us anything. No, it won't. It won't. We just print more money. There won't be any tax increases for the middle class. Right. So how does he plan on paying for everything? Unsurprisingly, he really didn't go into details on that one, but he did say this.
And while you're at it, confirm my nominees for the Federal Reserve, which plays a critical role in fighting inflation.
That's right, it does, because we're operating on, say it with me, modern monetary theory. You gotta have the Federal Reserve as the national bank so it can control every lever. It's fantastic. Now, I've never heard a sitting president in a State of the Union say, approve my Fed appointees. As in, the guys I want in there to start printing money and control your whole world. The word inflation was only mentioned 6 times during this entire speech. I think I could go out for lunch and it would be mentioned more than that. Not once did he give any clear answer on how you're going to address that, Joe. It's kind of odd, especially since all the recent polls say inflation and the economy are the main reason for the 63% of the country that disapprove of his job performance. The reality is they know inflation is a big problem. They know it's going to get worse. And believe me, it is going to become very, very painful. Very painful. It's part of the plan, modern monetary theory. It comes with side effects, but it's also essential to the Great Reset, which brings me to the first 15 minutes of Biden's speech, Ukraine. If you've been listening to me on the radio this week, I've been saying for the last few days, something doesn't feel right. I believe this is an actual crisis. This isn't planned or anything else, but the reactions are not right. Everything has been off. First of all, everyone in the world is united. When did that happen? 9/11? Really? It actually made sense back then. The United States was attacked and we had all the sympathy. Now nobody really likes us, and for good reason. But even then, we didn't see the level of commitment that we're seeing now. It's crazy. Here's Joe Biden last night on punishing Russia.
Together, along with our allies, we are right now enforcing powerful economic sanctions.
Powerful.
We're cutting off Russia's largest banks from the international financial system.
Yeah.
Preventing Russia's central bank from defending the Russian ruble. Making Putin's $630 billion war fund worthless. We're choking Russia's access. We're choking Russia's access to technology that will sap its economic strength and weaken its military for years to come.
Wow.
Tonight, I say to the Russian oligarchs and the corrupt leaders who bilked billions of dollars off this violent regime, no more.
No more. Wow, that was poetic. This is when it kind of solidified and what's been gnawing at the back of my brain during this entire thing. You know who doesn't have the right to tell the banks to shut SWIFT off for Russia? The governments of the world. You know who doesn't have the right to say, hey, you technology companies do this? The governments of the world. Have you ever seen this level of cooperation before? For the love of Pete, they were gassing and burning Jews in ovens in World War II, and IBM was still there at the gas chambers. I don't think I've ever seen everybody's in lockstep. That's amazing. Europe changed their entire foreign policy and did something they very rarely do: agree. And all because of Ukraine. Okay, well, it's a good cause, I guess. Really? Public governments from the United States, Europe, and Asia are inflicting sanctions in unison. But did you notice who else Biden credited? Private companies. This may be the first public-private partnership used as a global enforcement tool at this scale ever. Check this out. These are just some of the private companies that are moving in parallel with the government, and it's a complete coincidence. Facebook is blocking Russian media on their platforms. Microsoft is doing the same, as is Google and Netflix. Microsoft is even teaming up with the government to stop cyber attacks in Ukraine. Visa and MasterCard are blocking transactions. Global shipping companies are refusing to deliver any goods to Russian ports. Even if you could get a ship into the port, nobody will insure it because all the insurance companies are like, no, we're not going to work with you. Here's the thing, and don't get me wrong here. When it comes to Russia and Putin, what's happening in Ukraine, Putin is a bloodthirsty monster. Anything we can do to stop him, I welcome. All of this is probably needed, but what's weird is I've never seen it before in my lifetime. This is what's been bothering me. We need to be laser focused on what really is being shown here and built here. The entire financial world, global governments, and business, they changed after World War II. Bretton Woods changed everything. The World Bank, IMF, central banks became the most powerful institutions in the world. And all of them are fully on board with the Great Reset, as are all of the big global corporations. Wow. This is great, right? What are they building here? Remember Fiona Hill? She was one of the star witnesses in the Trump impeachment inquiry. She is a former intelligence officer at the National Security Council and a current fellow at the Brookings Institution. She's also a mentor to the primary source for the Steele dossier, but that's another crazy story. She was recently interviewed by Politico on the Ukrainian invasion, and I found this a little interesting. She claimed that we were already in World War III, and that Putin would, in fact, use nuclear weapons if he felt he had to. She also said that private companies need to, quote, fall in line, and give an example of this framework that just might happen. Quote, ordinary companies should make a decision. This is the epitome of ESG that companies are saying is their priority right now, upholding standards of good environmental, social, and corporate governance. If Western companies and their pension plans or mutual funds are invested in Russia, they should all pull out. Any people who are sitting on the boards of major Russian companies should resign immediately. Now, she's describing the enforcement mechanism for the Great Reset. This is everything I've been warning you about. Now, this time, it's not directed at just an individual or a company. It's an entire country. As I mentioned before, Fiona Hill, she's a fellow at Brookings. Guess what they're all over? I mean, they make out with the Great Reset and the World Economic Forum every night. I mean, how could you keep your hands off of Klaus? We know these people are looking for the next serious crisis to take the next leap. World War III and launching of nuclear weapons. Does that sound serious to you? America, pray for Ukraine. Condemn Russia and Putin for what they are doing. If you personally want to get involved, get involved. Do anything you can. Mercury One is helping the people who have crossed the border into Poland. But we cannot turn a blind eye to what is being built right under our noses. Everything they are doing to Ukraine could be weaponized against another country, another business, or you. Ukraine has shown that the public-private partnership is complete. They're even saying ESG in the same context as government sanctions. This is unreal. And you think it's not going to be turned against you, right? No. Check this out. Apple and Google Pay turned off their services to Moscow's metro system. Now, this isn't stopping Russia's ability to wage war. It doesn't punish Putin or his corrupt oligarchs. This is pointed directly at ordinary citizens. What else could they turn on or off to directly hurt you? Well, they are finding those new ways right now, and it's all because of a serious crisis. My gosh, can you imagine if oil goes up to $160 a barrel and we're not able to afford things and the economy collapses? Boy, that sounds like a serious crisis, doesn't it? If you think Bitcoin or crypto will help us navigate this brave new world, I hope you're right. People like Elizabeth Warren are using Ukraine to go after them as well. This is another Bretton Woods moment, I fear. Everything I've been warning you about regarding the Great Reset has not only solidified, it is being tested and shown to us. It's being demonstrated at its full global power. You're seeing the Death Star right now. I feel like a million voices cried out and screamed and then went silent. In just 1 week, this has happened in our world. Back in a minute with some more happy news. All right, let me tell you about home title lock. How much equity do you have in your home? Can you imagine if a cyber criminal stole your equity? Nobody told you about it until it was too late. They stole your house. What are they going to do? Put it on the back of a truck? Yeah, I tell my kids all the time. I just want to pick up the house, and I want to move it about this far to the left. Oh, they love it. Anyway, no, they're not going to steal your house. They'll steal the title. It's one of the fastest growing crimes. Home Title Lock is America's leader in home title protection. They were the first on the scene. Here's the deal. The deed to your home is a document that proves you own it. And the deeds to all of our homes are online now. In just a few minutes, really, honestly, a criminal could have it explained by Kamala Harris, and they could forge your name on the deed to your home. It's super easy. And then they become the owner of your house. Yeah, crazy, I know. Fastest growing crime. And it could happen to you and you won't know about it until the sheriff comes up and says, we got to take your house. You're a squatter? You're like, no, that's my house. No, it's not. Here's the title. Home Title Lock. It's your peace of mind knowing that the deed to your home is protected. HomeTitleLock.com. Get it now. HomeTitleLock.com. Okay, kids, why don't we bring the boxes up? This is how crazy the world is. This is today's Brady Bunch, which makes me Alice. So I want to introduce the panel here. It is Dave Rubin, Steve Deace, Pat Gray, and somebody else. I don't really remember his name, but we probably won't go to him anyway. Let's start with Dave Rubin. Dave, your thoughts on the speech last night?
Well, Glenn, first off, it's always a pleasure to work with you, but I just want to say that 20 minutes that I just heard was some of your best work ever, because you really captured everything that I felt while watching it, that I've been thinking about today, that I did on my show this morning. I mean, I really felt like I was having some kind of psychotic break within 10 minutes of watching that tragedy, that travesty of a State of the Union last night. Virtually every single thing that Joe Biden said, which was obviously written for him and did not come from whatever's left of his brain, was a lie. And not just a lie, it was a 180 on the truth. It wasn't like little white lies. We expect politicians to lie. We expect politicians to
Dave,
be over the top and all of that stuff. But everything was a lie. And we should only expect it. In a weird way, this is exactly what we deserve, what we're getting right now, because we live in a society that has been built on lies. Mainstream media lies to us about everything. We've all, the five of us here and all of our viewers, I think, try to fight the best that we can. But this is what happened last night is exactly what we should expect the system can spit back at us at this point. All it can do is give us more lies. And Joe Biden is just the meat bag that's up there spitting it out.
So, Dave, I'm going to come back to the panel later on in the program and ask, I want specifics. Was it mis, dis, or malinformation? Of course, those are all terrorist tactics, as we know from the Department of Homeland Security, anybody who spreads those kinds of lies. My question before we move on, Dave, is I know now that they think their voters are this stupid. The question is, are they?
Well, I guess the best way to answer that is the debate between sort of stupid and people who have been very skillfully misinformed, right? So I think a certain degree of people are just stupid. And by that, I don't even mean that dismissively. I mean that if you go and get a public education in the United States at this point, you do now think that 2 + 2 is 5, and you think that boys are girls, and you think that racism is now good and everything else. So there's a certain stupid element to it. But when you've been lied to by the media, when your politicians just get up there over and over again and lie to you, when Joe Biden came in, let's not forget, what was the first thing that the Washington Post decided to do? They said, hey, we're not going to fact check the president anymore. We're done doing that. We did it for Orange guy, but we like this Joe Biden guy. We're done. So it's a culmination of all of the things that we've all been fighting against. You know, when you add the big tech algorithms, so nobody knows how much information they're getting is either true or misinformation, or if they're just getting blasted by bots and fake stuff. This is what we're in right now. And I think what's going to increasingly happen is that the few sane people who are just doing their best to get through this and not lose their minds are going to start looking pretty crazy. And I include all of us in that, because a little honesty is going to be tough to look at in a crazy time.
Well, I think the audience heard what they needed to hear. Dave Rubin, obviously somebody who hates homosexuals. So let's move to a more reasoned approach with Steve Deace. Steve.
Yes, I'm where people go for reason. Yes. Yes.
Tell me.
I'm like Sam the Butcher bringing Alice the meat. Go ahead, Glenn. Yes.
I want to go to you because I think you came to the same conclusion I came to today, where this is the World Economic Forum. This is what's happening right now. What we're watching, the reason why it feels unsettling and like a show, even though I don't think it is, this is a real invasion. This is them just not missing the opportunity for a real crisis. Right?
I completely agree. I don't know how crazy you want me to get because it's your show, not mine.
No, go for it. I mean,
but there are.
We just had the anti-homosexual guy on. Why not? Go ahead.
and we're coming to me for reasons. So clearly, we're on the crazy train.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
There are two countries left in the West, Glenn, that have in their history or in their DNA some form of a manifest destiny. Us and Russia. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, their version, going back to Peter the Great, is a little bit different than all the way to the Soviet Union. A little bit different than ours, based on a 5,000-year leap. But these two countries have often, in various forms, been a holdout to past and modern and current iterations of the Habsburgs, which is essentially what the World Economic Forum and the Davos crowd is. They want to resurrect the Habsburg dynasty. And we're in a century now that our robber barons and tycoons were the holdouts in the late 19th and early 20th century because we were going to make more money doing this our own way. Now our robber barons and tycoons want to sign up for the Habsburgs. And that's why we just went through 23 months where no country had more distorted data on COVID than ours did, had less transparent data on COVID than ours did, had a media that lied more than ours did. People like me that researched this heavily had to go to other countries all over the world to get better data than we were getting here from the very beginning, whether it was Robert Redfield or Rochelle Walensky. It's because this was an opportunity from a crisis standpoint to usher the United States off a place of autonomy and into the World Economic Forum or the Great Reset. Russia is another holdout, now for different reasons, albeit with a bloodthirsty tyrant at the head who, has a dad who was an atheist Soviet and a mom who belonged to the Orthodox Church. So he's very double-minded. He's kind of a cruder KGB version of a Peter the Great, if you will. And he views him and his country as a holdout for the Great Reset as well. And this is why suddenly, when he attacked, we had Zelensky as the new Fauci, the unassailable hero who could not be questioned you never heard of 10 minutes ago. This is why the masks were, now we pour out all our Russian vodka while we buy the Russian oil, which was the version of don't use hydroxy or ivermectin or treatments that work, but instead wear a mask that does not. All the same game plans. They rotated them within a 72-hour period and used this as a distraction for now we got a Homer Simpson gif our way out of the COVID stand loser, and let's distract with Ukraine so that none of us are held accountable for the deadly decisions we've made the last 23 months. And all the same people that went from TikTok nurses and pronouns in their profile to Ukrainian flags, and all the same people who went from, wow, nurses are unassailable to fire the witch for not getting the jab, suddenly found nationalism and private gun ownership great if they did it in Ukrainian Cyrillic languages. This is the same scam, just a different day, different target from all of the same people. So just as COVID had to be used to knock us down a peg or two so that we'd be more open to joining the global community, the same thing is now happening to Putin. I think he believes he's the mastermind here, Glenn. He is the mark.
Could we just pull the camera in just a little bit? I want people to see how sincere I am on this. Google or NSA, if you're watching, he's crazy, right? I mean, I'm not for any of that stuff. None of it. Back in a minute.
That guy's bananas. That way.
All right, let me tell you about Relief Factor. If you're one of the millions of Americans who suffer every day from pain, I want you to listen up. There is hope. It comes in the form of Relief Factor. Every day I see testimonials of people who have tried Relief Factor and gotten their pain under control, got their life back. It's happened to me myself. Only a couple of years ago, about 4 years ago now, every time I was on TV, almost every time, I was hiding my pain. The camera operators, everybody knew, wait, he's having a hard time, make sure you go to another shot. Relief Factor. I feel great. I got my life back. I'm still a fat monster, but that's a whole different problem that Relief Factor can't solve. Relief Factor. I want you to try it out. Try it for 3 weeks. If it doesn't work for you, stop taking it. But 70% of the people who try it go on to order more. It's relieffactor.com. Relieffactor.com. Here's a take that did not come from me. I heard this today. Somebody said to me, gosh, Glenn. And I said, what, Glenn? And he said, it's almost like Joe Biden was given some Nazi super soldier serum before this, because he actually was pretty alert the whole time. And that's hours after his bedtime. Pat. Yeah.
He did slur his words throughout the entire speech, though.
Yeah.
He was slurring Russia.
And he did call the Ukrainian people the Iranian people, but that's no big deal for him.
And the lies, they're what? I mean, I don't hate anyone, because that would be wrong if I did.
Right.
I just dislike him with all the intensity of a trillion white-hot burning suns.
But just that.
Yeah, but just that.
Mm-hmm. You wouldn't want to judge him, but he's going to hell.
Of course.
Yeah,
he's going to burn in the fire of hell. Sure. But I'm not
let's
his
not judge.
No.
All right, go ahead.
The lies, I can't take them anymore. He stopped Russia with his sanctions. When did they stop? Did I miss something?
Can I just ask the table a quick question, and let's not get bogged down in this, but does anybody know if the sanctions are really working or not really working? I hear they're amazing, it's all coming together, and then I also hear nothing means anything. Does anybody think they know the truth?
I don't want to assume anybody's pronouns, Glenn.
Dave, go ahead.
That's what they said. They said that we're going to have all these great sanctions. These are record-breaking sanctions. You're not going to believe what we're going to do with these sanctions. And then what was it? The assistant secretary of energy or something came out and said, oh, don't worry. It won't have anything to do with energy. We're not going to affect their oil, which basically is like punishing your kid by being like, go upstairs. You got a PS5. You got to stay in your room. You got soda, pizza, a hooker, cocaine. Have at it. It's just these people are ridiculous.
Oh, my gosh. And now he's going against sex workers. Oh, my God.
He talked about the Russian oligarchs and how he means it. He's going to stop them, and these sanctions will stop them. Well, everybody except for the oil oligarchs who have made billions of dollars from oil, because we're not touching their oil at all, which is something that would really affect Russia and Putin. The taxes thing, someday we're going to have to decide. We're going to finally have to ask the question, how much is the fair share for the richest 1% in this country?
I actually scared my children because I started screaming at him on television because I don't know about anybody else at this table, but I pay the highest tax rate. My total tax bill is probably 50%. What is my fair share? Is it 70? Is it 75? And everyone you ever say, do you know that the top tax rate, they're paying 50%? People always react the same way. No.
Yeah, they're stuck.
Yeah.
And when you hit them with the statistic that the top 1% pay 40% of the tax burden, that also tends to surprise people. But I think
there is a difference, and they never go after these people. Warren Buffett, he pays less than his secretary. Yes, because he's not making an income. Right. So when you're not taking income, you're just living off the trust fund, your tax burden is different. And those are the people that think those are the rich. They're thinking not of the guy who started his business down the street who happens to have like $1 million now. That's not the rich guy. They're talking about the Soros people. They're talking about the Bill Gates, the Zuckerbergs of America. Am I wrong on that?
No, I think largely that's right.
And they don't really ever seem to be affected.
No, and they mostly pay capital gains because it's investment money. Well, that's already been taxed.
Correct.
That's already, which is why that rate is now lower, because it's a double tax. And the voting rights, the voting oppression thing. I can't understand how we haven't gotten past that.
Listen to what he said last night.
The most fundamental right in America is the right to vote and have it counted. And look, it's under assault. In state after state, new laws have been passed not only suppress the vote, we've been there before, but to subvert the entire election. You can't let this happen.
How do these people,
Tonight I call on
again,
the Senate.
shut up. We already heard it once. How do these people say these things? Because this is when they lose the midterms. This is all you're going to hear. And I think there will be violence on the streets because Stacey Abrams didn't win, her governorship in Georgia. And they will stir all of this stuff.
They will.
How are they saying this about Donald Trump when the president is on television lying right now?
It's amazing. I mean, and you look at him trying to stumble his way through this speech. And one of the things, you guys have covered a lot of really good points and high-level arguments on this, but the bottom line is it was a really boring speech. He is not inspirational. He's not a leader in any way. This speech could have been given almost entirely in 1988. It's the same talking points they've been throwing out there forever. And you look at a guy like Zelensky, who obviously is not perfect, but look at the way he's been able to at least inspire his people. He's, just the ability to communicate at any level has some influence on a populace. This president is the opposite. He's a giant dud who went in there, coughed on his hands 50 times, and then shook the hands of everybody who was elderly in the audience in an old building with no ventilation. I mean, I think it was awful. I mean, and the polling afterward with the focus groups showed that. I mean, it was the worst testing of State of the Union they've had in 15 years.
Wow. I will tell you that, you watch this, and I thought he did better than I expected because my standards are really so low right now. But you watch him, and I just am amazed at every word that comes out of all of these people's mouths. The last time his strategy to win, and Steve, you're a polling guru. You've worked on campaigns. His strategy was, I'm not Donald Trump. I think the midterm strategy for the Democrats is that we're not us. Back in just a minute.
Wasn't me. I'm gonna drop the Dave Chappelle. Wasn't me. That's their tagline. You know what? To me, the number one thing I want to see is how many people total watch this. Now, on the big four networks, the number is about 12 million. We haven't added in the cable news networks yet. And here's why I think that is the only thing that really matters. It's because that tells us how many people are just temporarily PO'd because things aren't going well, and then how many that therefore could be persuaded if things went better. Or how many people have written him off? Like if I were in the Axelrod, the Democrat technocrat community, I'd be the number one polling thing I have seen that would have me freaked out is that a majority of Americans are now saying they don't think he's mentally fit to be president. Because that is where you get to a stage now where you're looked at as either beyond unlikable, which we had to deal with the last few years in the Trump era, or beyond capable. And that's where people now just write you off. Like there is nothing you could do. There's nothing you could say. There's no accomplishment you could have. They've just moved on. And so when I'm not so much concerned or wouldn't care about what the approval ratings of the speech were, but how many people watched. You can get a Hugo Chavez approval rating if it's just your people watching. The question is how big is not the slice, but the pie. Is there still a lot of Americans out there, and it's crazy we're even having this conversation, not even just beginning a second year of an administration, but he got 81 million votes, guys. 81 million, allegedly. So how many of those people will come back if things get better? That's why what I want to see was the total viewership of that speech last night. Well, we have to take a break, but I tell you, I'm disappointed. I suggested to the Republicans that they all start chanting 3 more years, 3 more years, but they didn't take me up on that. Back in a minute. It's one thing to predict what might be coming over the horizon. It's another to say it and see it happen. It is a spooky place. We've been joking a lot tonight, but how many on the panel feel like we're approaching last call for the United States of America and freedom all around the world? How bad is this going to get? Gas, food prices, by year 2,
And are we going into some sort of global war? Dave, let's start with you.
Look, it's bad and it's going to get worse. So snark and joking aside, you guys know I fled California about 2 months ago. I'm here in the free state of Florida. And that was one of my calculations, was that this thing feels like it's imploding. There's a bunch of us doing our best to fight it. And I think it can be fought from certain states. I put Florida, and where most of you guys are, Texas, I would put it number 2 right there. But the world order, the liberal world order, seems like it's collapsing on itself. I agree with a lot of Steve's conspiracy stuff a little bit earlier. He's nuts. The guy's nutty.
Nuts.
And I accidentally
We've been saying, I've been trying to
today.
report him to the Department of Homeland Security.
I don't even think what I just said. I ripped it off from Stu's Twitter feed. I want NSA to know that.
But yeah, look, I agree with a lot of the sentiment there. It's a little hard to know how coordinated all this is. But if you think any of the things that we just talked about Joe Biden are true, well, Putin was watching that speech last night. And even though Joe Biden kept saying, well, we're not going to send troops in, or we're not going to war, or something to that effect, the whole speech was a threat. So Putin needs an off-ramp here. And I didn't hear much of an off-ramp for Putin. And the guy's got nukes. And we know about inflation. We know about supply chain stuff. It seems like it's all going to get worse. The question that everybody always asks is what is rock bottom, right? How much worse can it get before it turns around? I mean, look, we've got, about 8 months or so till the midterms, and we just have to pray and keep our heads on straight and make sure that enough people know that they must vote out every Democrat. I always say to people,
and
you don't have to
squishy
be a Republican, but you don't have to be a Republican, but you cannot be a Democrat. And that is really how I feel about things. I don't really consider myself a Republican. You guys know I'm kind of new to this side of the aisle, let's say. But you must get rid of the Democrats first. And then we can figure out all the little disagreements that we've got. But we are close, guys. This experiment, as our friend Dennis Prager always describes America, this experiment is very, very close to going horrifically awry.
All right, I want to go to Paul Lind in the upper left. Pat.
I think they're going to try to move heaven and earth to make things better by August, September, because they have to. They know they can't win like this. They can't win with $5 a gallon gas. They can't win when you go to the grocery store and steak is $250 a pound. They can't win that way. So
I would have laughed at that $250 a pound steak. I would have laughed at that.
Took a picture of it.
Yeah, it happened. It happened in a Costco here in Dallas. Now it was
more than a pound, right?
No,
that better have been Japanese Wagyu.
Yeah, it was Wagyu, and it was $99 a pound. But it could next year. It could easily.
Yeah, it could easily.
Anyway,
and if it is, there's no chance the Democrats win. There's absolutely no chance. And so I think they're going to try. I don't know if they can succeed because they're buffoons. As far as World War, I think that's down the road a ways. It's going to be interesting to see what happens if China also attacks Taiwan, because I don't think we're going to do anything about that either. But
yes, we will.
You think so?
We'll blow up the chip plants.
Well,
but that's all we'll do.
That's it.
Yeah.
So as far as World War, I think that's down the road a ways.
Steve?
I don't know how you could have any response to the last 23 months in particular, other than literally anything is on the table. I mean, I think you are. I think we live somewhere between. I think the lowest stakes we're playing for here. I tell this to my audience all the time. The lowest stakes we're playing for here is the end of Western civilization. That's the lowest stakes we're playing for. The highest stakes we're playing for is you're living through kind of an end of days kind of an era, okay? And so I don't know how you couldn't put absolutely anything on the table, including what Pat just said, which is they find ways, they manufacture ways to try to make things markedly better here in the next 6 months. And then you're dealing with the long-term ramifications of, that nip and tuck and whatever bale wire they use to pull that one off. But I think everything has to be on the table, guys.
Glenn, real quick, before you jump to Stu, can I just add that this is the good point on this, which is that you must give the devil his due. We saw them last night flip on who defunded the police, right? They're all up there applauding, we will fund the police. These are the very same people, the two people right behind Joe Biden, Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi, we did it on my show this morning. There are tons of videos in the last 2 years of them calling to defund the police. AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Bernie, the rest of them.
I know.
So
I think that's why
flip on a dime, and we have to be aware of that.
I think that's why Kamala was wearing the brown suit. It was camouflage. It was weird that chair had a face, but I think that's what was going on.
Look, I think there's a good chance that there's enough of an awakening about what the last couple of years have been to manage in some way our domestic political situation, right? I think there's a good chance this election goes well for Republicans and some of these people are thrown out of office. But that being said, I mean, we are in a situation where one or two missiles fired in the wrong place.
An airplane crashes on its own, nothing going on.
Could put us at war with Russia, with Joe Biden at the helm. I mean, talk about anything being on the table. Our entire civilization is on the table in that scenario. So that's why I think this is such a big deal. And the media will hype it, and it'll go down weird roads, and there's a lot of aspects that we can cover that are domestically important. But this is also a situation where the type of thing where a catastrophic World War type of situation is not off the table, especially when you have people like this with this level of incompetence and this level of bad intentions with so many different issues. God only knows where this could go.
Go back as a viewer and subscriber of The Blaze, go back and go through the archives of the things I said. I did, I think, a 2-episode special on the things that you need to have to prepare for catastrophic events. I mean, hopefully we're all wrong, but if you don't think there's at least a possibility that this thing opens up as a giant sinkhole and our world, our lives dramatically change as fast as tomorrow, you're fooling yourself. Go back and look for those shows. We'll try to find them and point them out to you tomorrow on the radio program. Guys, thank you so much for each of you. Everything that you guys do every day, I know what it's like. Just to keep, well, Steve, I think Steve actually enjoys being in the darkness. But it's hard to stay optimistic. Yeah, and I thank all of you for being on the program and doing what you do every day. Thank you. Now get out. Back in a minute.
Good seeing you guys.
I don't think anybody can predict the future, especially when God is involved. There are miracles that we will all see in our lifetime. I don't know how our story ends or if it ends. I do know this. I'm really sick and tired of people saying, that's crazy. What in the last 5 years hasn't been crazy? Look at what we have been through. Look at the things that have happened. Teachers are calling the Department of Justice to say that parents are terrorists. COVID, we're locked in our house for 2 years. We've just spent $9 trillion. 2 weeks ago, I would have said, we're not going to nuclear war. Now I don't know. The world has changed. Don't let the normalcy bias cloud your vision, because nothing is normal. Think differently. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on radio. Good night.